Tonight, heartbreaking scenes from Afghanistan. Babies being given to U.S. troops as NATO fights to extend the evacuation deadline. Plus, a pro-life victory in Texas, where a controversial second trimester abortion procedure is banned. What doctors are saying about it. And an Oklahoma mom does what she can to help a special group of Afghan students in crisis. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation.
President Biden addresses the nation and for the first time since the chaos in Afghanistan began, takes tough questions from reporters. Good evening, I'm Jenna Browder. The biggest concern, the president says, is evacuating Americans.
Any American who wants to come home, we will get you home.
Meanwhile, thousands of stranded Americans and Afghans are trying to do just that and escape the Taliban. While President Biden maintains his stance on the military pullout, radical Islamists are intensifying their threats to U.S. allies and would-be refugees. CBN's Brody Carter joins us with tonight's top story. Brody?
President Biden getting slammed tonight on Twitter after claiming nobody is having trouble getting to Kabul airport. The Pentagon confirmed only 2 flights have taken off after a backlog of refugees grounded planes for about 8 hours. Now the evacuation mission has resumed as thousands of people wait to be rescued in Afghanistan. A major question tonight: when might the chaos ease? There seems to be no sign, with ongoing scenes of soldiers trying to contain crowds rushing to the airports, now their only hope of escaping Afghanistan as neighboring countries close their borders.
I've been stuck here for the past 2 days. I'm trying to get in. I went to the Americans. They pushed me out.
Women and children scream for U.S. NATO soldiers to let them in. Watch this heartbreaking footage of parents pleading for soldiers to save their child. Another shows this baby being handed to military personnel over the airport wall.
The limiting factor is not the lack of planes. The limiting factor now is actually the ability to get people into the airport process and on the planes.
As many as 15,000 Americans and at least 60,000 Afghans remain as NATO forces work to extend the August 31st evacuation deadline.
I cannot promise what the final outcome will be, or what it will be, that it will be without risk of loss. But as Commander-in-Chief, I can assure you that I will mobilize every resource necessary.
The White House says 3,000 people have been evacuated from Kabul on Thursday.
We've got additional consular officers now at these additional gates, with additional troops helping the consular officers.
NATO keeping communications open with the Taliban, hoping to preserve some semblance of safety as the country collapses. Some military personnel fear the Taliban will use Afghanistan as a major training ground for terrorists.
The minute that Biden declared his withdrawal, the Taliban immediately declared victory before anything else happened. And that was echoed by jihadists all around the world.
Islamic extremists seen here on Twitter flaunting a treasure trove of guns left behind by Afghan and American soldiers. Insurgents have also taken over 2,000 armored vehicles, drones, even warplanes and Black Hawk helicopters. Pentagon officials just confirmed that baby that was given to the U.S. Marine has been returned to its father, calling the moment that he took that baby an act of great compassion. Now, they had no comment on the second instance. Meantime, the underground church there says the Taliban is terrorizing the streets. Not only are they threatening refugees, they're going door to door, taking women and children as sex slaves. One of their biggest targets now, Christians. Jenna, back to you.
Yeah. All right, Brody Carter, thank you. And to that point, Taliban also beating Americans. Lloyd Austin, the Secretary of Defense, calling it unacceptable, contradicting what the president, in fact, said. Well, Edward Graham, grandson of the late evangelist Billy Graham, knows firsthand what's at stake in Afghanistan. He served several tours of duty himself there. CBN's Wendy Griffith spoke with him earlier today.
Edward Graham is the youngest son of Franklin Graham and the grandson of evangelist Billy Graham. He's also a graduate of West Point and served several combat tours in Afghanistan as an Army Ranger. And he joins us now to talk about the current events going on in Afghanistan. Edward, thanks for being with us.
Hey, thanks, Wendy. Appreciate you having me.
Well, Edward, as a veteran of that war, what is your reaction to seeing the Taliban back in charge in Afghanistan?
As a veteran, this hurts. You know, we spent years there fighting, and I was surrounded by talent, men and women that worked hard and did an incredible job with the resources provided. But to see the enemy back, this is an evil enemy. I've seen what this enemy's done to children and women, and I've watched on drone footage for years as we hunted them, what they're capable of. And to see them back in charge of this nation is a great and tragic loss. And it's unfortunate that failed policies have led to this point.
The Biden administration is blaming the Afghan army for giving up. But some say that without U.S. support, they really never had a chance. What do you think?
Yeah, personally, I agree with that. I've been there for years. You know, I've worked and trained the Afghan special operations. The commandos and the Qatejas were very offensive capable. These are what the Green Berets and the Rangers trained. They could go out and actually conduct combat operations against the enemy, but the conventional army never could. They never withstood. Same in Iraq. When the U.S. Army, conventional Army, and Marine Corps go in and trained other forces, it hasn't stood the test of time. Iraq Army fell, so did the Afghan Army. And how we didn't see this coming, I don't know. If you asked an E5 sergeant on the ground, he would have told you this. So a lot of bad reports going up.
Edward, talk about the spiritual battle for Afghanistan. Obviously, God loves the Afghan people. How should we be praying for that nation right now?
Yeah, this is a man-made mess on both sides, with the Taliban, with evil, with failed policies here on multiple administrations here in the U.S. But in order to get out of this and to get everyone out, to get our partners out, the church, NGOs, we're going to need a miracle. And man made this, but it's going to take God to get us out. And that's my prayer. I was like, Lord, please. I go to bed at night praying for a way to get these people out. They're hurting. They're scared. I mean, they know what's coming with the Taliban. They know exactly what's coming, and that's why they're fleeing. They either lived it or they know the stories.
Wow.
And it's my prayer for peace, a peace that only God can bring about, not man. Clearly, man could not bring peace in Afghanistan. Only God can, and that's what I'm praying for.
Amen, amen. Well, you're with Samaritan's Purse, which has a special ministry to wounded veterans. Tell us how you help them heal from the scars of war.
Yeah, Dad started this when I was still on active duty, and it's an unbelievable opportunity. It's a marriage retreat. When you look at these wounded soldiers, many of them lost their identity when they were told they could no longer serve, and it's affected their marriage. They've learned to cope in other ways, whether it be with alcohol or painkillers, and it's destroyed marriages and families. But we take them up to Alaska for a week-long marriage retreat, Christ-centered, and give them skills and sets, but point them to the gospel. And that's what I love about it. And it's not just Alaska. Many ministries take you out maybe deer hunting, fishing. It's a one-time touch. We're committed to life with these couples. And we do follow-up. We have aftercare programs with them. We do reunions with them. We have small groups. We plug them into the local church with our Operation Christmas Child Network, with those churches we partner with. This ministry is working, and we're watching lives changed every week. We take about 10 couples up every week in the entire summer, and over half those are usually making decisions for Christ or being baptized. It's working, and I'm proud to be a part of that one.
Well, I can certainly tell you're passionate about it as well. Well, thanks so much for being with us, for your insights, and for all the ministry that you and your family are doing. God bless you.
Well, thank you.
Now, wonderful ministry and amazing work that Samaritan's Purse does. Well, to the battle over abortion, pro-choice groups are scrambling for legal options after a federal judge upheld a Texas law that bans a common abortion method. Senior Washington correspondent Tara Mergener has the story. Tara?
The most significant challenge to Roe v. Wade in a generation.
Many believe the implications of the Mississippi case could be far-reaching, potentially curbing the 1973 landmark ruling.
Abortion opponents hailed this as something a long time coming.
While many applaud the judge's decision, Abby Johnson points out it will not stop abortions.
The fact that this was upheld does not mean that second trimester abortions cannot move forward in the state of Texas. They absolutely can. They just can't be done through a D&E abortion.
Pro-choice advocates argue the law, known as SB 8, outlaws often the safest methods of abortion during this phase of pregnancy and insist fetuses cannot feel pain at this point.
It is still possible and legal to get abortion in Texas. And, I'm very concerned because these laws are so intended to sow disinformation and chaos before we have time to, rely on some of our backstops and our protests, essentially, to stop these horrible bans.
Meanwhile, Johnson says she's encouraged the courts, as in the Mississippi case, are starting to focus less on the procedure itself and more on the life at stake.
One of the reasons that case is so powerful, and even more powerful than like a dismemberment abortion case, is because it's not looking at a type of abortion procedure. It's not looking at the abortion itself at all. It's looking at the preborn human being, which is what we need to be focusing on in the first place.
As for the Texas law, it is one of many abortion restrictions enacted in recent years by Republican-controlled state legislatures. But this one has never been enforced due to legal challenges. In Washington, I'm Tara Mergener, CBN News.
Thank you, Tara. Well, grim news on the COVID-19 front as the pandemic continues to worsen every day since the month of June. The number of daily deaths is still soaring higher, more than 900 just yesterday alone. And now more than 93,000 Americans are hospitalized, the highest number since January. Officials in Alabama report ICU beds completely full, and in Mississippi, seeing an uptick in children being admitted to the hospital. Well, Norm Oliver is the health commissioner for the state of Virginia, and he joins us now. Hi, Norm. Thank you for coming on. So this Delta variant, it seems to be a lot more serious than other strains we've seen so far.
Yes, that's certainly true. It's primarily serious because of how quickly it spreads. The Delta variant is much more transmissible than the prior variants of the COVID-19 virus. It's about twice as infectious as the Alpha variant, the first one that we had to deal with. And because of that, you've been seeing a lot more cases of it. It's also the case that those of us who've been vaccinated, we found that the vaccines are slightly less effective against the Delta variant. They're still very effective. They keep you from being hospitalized, having serious illness or death. But there are more breakthrough mild cases among the vaccinated. So, yes, it's a very serious thing.
Well, to your point, 3 senators recently tested positive for COVID-19, even fully vaccinated. Their cases, of course, add to a very long list. They're Olympic athletes, of course, the general public, too. A lot of people who have been vaccinated coming down with COVID. What is going on here? And does this show the lack of strength, I guess, to these vaccines?
Really good question. So what we're seeing is breakthrough cases. No vaccine is 100% effective. There's no such thing as an ironclad protection in that sense. When the vaccines first came out, you'll recall that the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines were considered 95% effective against the coronavirus. That meant that there were still about 5% of people who got vaccinated who were getting COVID-19, although it was very mild or even asymptomatic cases. So we're seeing that still, but with the Delta variant, we're seeing an increase in the number of breakthrough cases. So the vaccines are about 85% effective. There's more breakthrough on those of us who have been vaccinated. Again, people who are getting those breakthrough cases are getting mild cases. So the takeaway here is that getting vaccinated protects you 100% from really serious illness, hospitalization, or death. And for those reasons, it's really important that you get vaccinated.
What about natural immunity? That doesn't seem to be something that a lot of the medical field is talking about. But Dr. Marty McCary with Johns Hopkins Medical School says we should be categorizing people by not by vaccinated and unvaccinated, but instead by immune and non-immune. What do you think about that?
The vaccination we can track. We're not really tracking the antibody status of everyone who's out there in the U.S. It is true that if you get the disease, you will develop antibodies, but it's not known how long those antibodies last. Just as the vaccine we're seeing has a situation where after about 8 months, the antibody level that you have in your body is declines slightly. And we're talking now about the possibility of boosters to help you get that back up to a more protective level. That the same thing happens with so-called natural immunity. And also the other thing you have to realize is that if there's other variants, like the Delta variant, it may be still a little more infectious for you if you have developed antibodies, say, to the Alpha variant or some other variant.
All right, Virginia Health Commissioner Norm Oliver, good to see you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Coming up, no vaccine, no service. Our next guest says some hospitals are now deprioritizing the unvaccinated.
Come home to the sounds of Southern Gospel from CBN Radio. You'll enjoy a rich Southern blend of bluegrass, classic gospel, and Southern gospel favorites like the Gaithers, the Crab Family, and bluegrass sounds like Mountain Faith. So make yourself at home with the all-new CBN Southern Gospel, now available at cbnradio.com.
It's about the competition.
I kind of put that pressure on myself, and I think people had expectations.
It's about overcoming.
We use this phrase all the time, keep chopping, keep practicing hard.
It's about going the distance.
You know, I think as a father, it's my job, you know, to lead, just be the best husband and father I can be.
Watch Going the Distance with Sean Brown Saturday night at 7:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
Welcome back. Hospitals, deprioritizing patients based on vaccinations. Roger Severino, who served in the Department of Health and Human Services in the Trump administration, says it's happening. In a tweet, he says it, quote, called it. Hospitals actually giving lower priority to unvaccinated patients. Severino says it's debased utilitarianism, adding that America can't have two classes of citizens. And Roger joins us now. Roger, welcome. It's great to have you on the show this evening. So where is this deprioritization happening?
Sure. It comes to the question of what's known as crisis standards of care. Resources. So when you start running out of bed, some very tough decisions have to be made. However, you have to take each patient as an individual before you make those tough choices. But what we've seen, at least in one hospital in Texas, is that they want to deprioritize people based on their vaccination status. And that's very dangerous territory. We've seen already, when I was head of the Office for Civil Rights at HHS, there was this same sort of deprioritization and exclusion based on disabilities. And that's discriminatory. You have to take an individual as they are. You can't use blunt instruments and say, you have this one condition, you're out, without making an individualized assessment. And with the vaccination status, being unvaccinated is not a disease. And that's something that is highly inappropriate for medical doctors to take into account and use that as a single answer, one size fits all. And I'm very afraid that we're going to have a two-tiered society where if you're vaccinated, you get. If you're unvaccinated, again, being unvaccinated is not a disease, you get excluded. That's not where we want to be.
Yeah, two types of citizens, as you mentioned. Well, Roger, you now serve with the Ethics and Public Policy Center. That said, Is this a slippery slope in medical ethics?
Sure. You have to ask, where does it end? The point of medicine is to heal people, to cure people, not to cast judgment and blame victims. We really want to separate that. The broader policy questions about vaccines and efficacy, et cetera, which the vaccines have been great at saving tons of lives. But when you have a patient who wants a transplant, which is also where we've seen discrimination against unvaccinated persons, and saying you're not worthy because we're judging you based on decisions, that's turning into an ethical question that those doctors should not be in a position to make. Again, we saw this with people with disabilities. We do not want to say that some created in the image and likeness of God, we're all equal, and we should all have this equal access to medical care, whether it's a transplant, whether it's crisis centers of care, whether it's even access to your primary care physician. We're just on one doctor. It's literally a sign. You get no treatment, period. That's just wrong.
Roger, what can be done to protect patients' rights, regardless of whether or not they've been vaccinated?
Well, this is new territory. So I come from a civil rights background, and there's all sorts of protected classes that are traditional. Whether somebody is vaccinated or unvaccinated, this is new. We haven't seen this as a class very often. We have seen folks make requests for religious accommodations to vaccines. And the COVID vaccines, unfortunately, were derived with aborted fetal cell lines from abortions from decades ago. Many people of good faith object to ingesting those vaccines, and it's not justified in the circumstances. If they seek religious accommodation, there are protections under law. If it's Title VII, if your employer is trying to force it on you and you have a religious objection, you could make that objection, and then there's a balancing test that goes on. If you're a federal government employee, the Religious Freedom Restoration Act also gives some protections. So if you have a religious objection, there are some avenues that people should be aware of and should stand for them. If you don't stand for your rights, you will lose them.
All right. A little bit of a shaky connection this evening, but Roger Severino, we appreciate you coming on. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll be right back.
Too often, we carry baggage from our past. You know what it's like. It affects everything and everyone in our lives. It's always there, weighing us down and keeping us from achieving true happiness. But do you know God never meant for us to be trapped in the past? You can be free of your baggage. Learn how God's forgiveness leads to changed lives and new beginnings. Call the 700 Club.
I'm Ephraim Graham, and this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
The fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Wednesday night at 8:30 on the CBN News Channel. Tikkun Olam.
This is our nature as a country.
To make the world a better place.
Literally, we felt the earth shaking.
The Christian Broadcasting Network presents To Life, how Israeli volunteers are changing the world.
This film needs to be seen by everyone.
I was in tears.
Now you can own the inspiring documentary To Life on DVD.
There is blood on our hands if we know and we walk away.
I'm so grateful that this film was made.
To Life can be yours for a gift of $10 or more. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to cbn.com.
We know that every minute counts to save life.
It'll bless Israel, but it'll also bless all the friends of Israel.
Discover the untold story of how Israeli volunteers are making the world a better place. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to cbn.com to get your copy today.
We're in the midst of hurricane season, and the next possible threat could hit the eastern seaboard. Here's Weather Bell's Joe Bastardi.
Back in late July, we targeted the week of August the 16th through 23rd as a big problem based on global weather patterns that we use here at Weather Bell. And Henri is got a chance to be trapped so that instead of just going out to sea, during the day Saturday, it starts intensifying rapidly, and it comes right at southeast New England. And there's a chance that it actually goes into southeast New England from the south or southeast. The biggest threat right now is at Cape Cod, but if you're anywhere from Long Island and Connecticut all the way into southeastern New England, you have to pay special attention to this storm, because this storm could be very, very bad. Even though it will weaken as it gets closer to the coast, it will push so much water and so much wind up in front of it that it's a 2-3 day siege that is possible, starting as late as Saturday night or as early as Saturday night and finally getting out of the way on Monday. The real threat period later Sunday on into Monday. Right now, the centering of that threat is around Cape Cod. Those of you who lived out there in 1996, remember Edouard. It may be quite similar to Edouard in 1996. Now, right after Edouard came Fran, and we're already telling clients to look out the first week of September, because this pattern, even though there's nothing on the computer models now, remember, 10, 15 days ago, the storms that you see now weren't on the models. The pattern that we are in is similar to last year, similar to 2017, where it produces higher than average risks in close to the United States coastline.
It's the new Superbook Bible app. It's packed with games, activities, and Superbook episodes that you can watch for free. Oh, no! There's trivia, a fun daily devotional, and answers to your Bible questions. Plus, an easy-to-understand Bible the whole family will enjoy. You can even create your own Superbook character. Ta-da! It's the new Superbook Bible app. Free downloads on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon.
On the home front.
Thanks for joining us for CBN's On the Home Front, where we highlight what the men and women of America's military do to defend our country. CBN honors the men and women in our military with an initiative called Helping the Home Front. It partners with churches across the country to meet the needs of their military families, from repairing homes to wiping out medical bills for wounded veterans.
Wednesday at 3 on the CBN News Channel. Get Protect Your Sleep and discover how to improve the quality of your life. A free DVD or booklet from the Christian Broadcasting Network.
If you're not a great sleeper, you can do things to make yourself a great sleeper. If you're already a pretty good sleeper, you can enhance your sleep and be even better.
5 leading experts help remove the obstacles between you and restorative sleep.
When you don't get a restful night's sleep, you wake up with an accumulation of stress.
Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com to get your free DVD or booklet today.
Everything you do better with a good night's sleep.
You'll discover how food affects your sleep, how to put insomnia to rest, explore effective remedies for sleep apnea, and much more in Protect Your Sleep. Wake up to your best life and get Protect Your Sleep today. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com to get your free DVD or booklet.
Finally tonight, a mission to save an all-girls robotics team from Afghanistan is underway. Allison Renault, an Oklahoma mother with 11 kids of her own, is working with the help of the Afghan Girls Rescue Fund to make it happen. Renault met the girls back in 2019 at a Humans to Mars conference. The team of Afghan girls were known as an example of how women's rights had improved after the U.S. had invaded. 10 have so far arrived safely in the States.